Online at pointofview.net.
This is Alistair Begg of Truth for Life, heard daily and weekends on Bible School Radio, 91.3 KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and on 91.3 KYJC Commerce.
Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
So are you covered by the FDIC rules? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it, and I do have a line open if you'd like to call in and join the program. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357, 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send a question into the Ask Bob section, and I will get that taken care of for you. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, we started off with the bank failures, and what I like to do each day is catch you up on the latest news. And we started off with the White House telling you everything's going to be okay. We're going to back all these depositors. Nobody's going to lose any money. That reassurance lasted until it didn't. Then today we had Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen come out and take her turn crafting the optic that everything's going to be okay. And of course, as that happened, the regional bank stocks went up, and of course the market followed. But the question is this a really good thing? We're talking two banks for sure, a third bank probable, unless they get some emergency, someone buys the bank. But First Republic is obviously in trouble. But you're talking about a government, when they call it a backstop, that means we're going to cover everybody's deposits. And the market's going up on this. We've talked about the reasons the market goes up and doesn't make sense a lot of the time. But I just don't see this as a good thing. I mean, they have FDIC insurance is not there just to bail everybody out. And if you had in fact, let's go through some of Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's remarks. She says that the steps we took were not focused on aiding specific banks or classes of banks. Excuse me, that's just ridiculous. Our intervention was necessary to protect the broader U.S. banking system. Let me reread that one more time. The steps we took were not focused on aiding specific banks, but they did aid specific banks, two in particular. Our intervention, or let's use the appropriate word, our bailout was necessary to protect the broader U.S. banking system. I've got a question for Janet Yellen. And it's simply this. We're talking about the government stepping in and bailing out two fairly small banks. Now, granted, one bank by assets was the 16th largest bank before it went down. But the Signature Bank was, there's not hardly anything in the press about really what happened to Signature Bank, which is troubling. There should be plenty of information floating around about what's happening. So my question is, what in the world are they scared of? To take this aggressive? Because here's the thing, And I've had these conversations a lot about insurance companies, these big multinational insurance companies. What if one of those got into trouble and was going down? Would they be bailout candidates? I don't know. We've never seen a big major. Well, actually, I think we actually no. I'm trying to think if we did in '08 or not. But are those going to be bailed out? We have 10, 15, 20 more banks. The report that I read yesterday was that there was 186 banks that are susceptible to the same thing the Silicon Valley Bank went through if they lost half of their deposits. In other words, there was a run on the bank. 186 banks. So if 186 banks go down, are we going to bail all those out? Are we just going to bail out the whole backstop? Excuse me, I'm not using the right word. Backstop the entire system. That is not a good precedent to be setting by any stretch of the imagination. And so it really makes me wonder, what all are they seeing that's different that we are not seeing? And of course, there's always they're on the inside; they can see what's happening. Obviously, something's pretty well spooking them. Here's some more from Janet Yellen. During a question and answer session at the ABA conference Tuesday, American Bankers Association, which she just conveniently was speaking at, she said the current banking crisis is different than the 2008 financial debacle. Rather, what we're seeing are contagious bank runs. Now, I haven't heard of really any major bank runs, but she says they're seeing contagious bank runs, and which was an interesting statement to make. The public, she added, should have confidence in our banking system, and it's our intention to remain vigilant in the days and weeks to come. That means potentially intervening if a smaller bank experiences the kinds of difficulties we've seen that pose the risk of contagion. Now, this is where the conspiracy theorist part of me comes out. You start taking over a percentage of the banking system, and the next thing you know, you've taken over the entire system, and you've nationalized the system where the government owns the banking system. Now, I would suggest to you that the government already owns, there's a shadow banking system running. Obviously, that's pure speculation. But Treasury officials are studying whether they can expand a backstop, once again, not bailout, but backstop. This is the new bailout. And it has a little bit, doesn't have as bad of a connotation to it. Provided by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to all deposits without the approval of Congress, Bloomberg has reported. Now, this is... oh, this just makes my head hurt. The U.S. Treasury Department wants to go forward. Of course, they're just studying this right now. But if they decide it's a good idea, they want to go forward doing this without the confident vote and approval of Congress. Now, we all know that Congress, well, I won't go there. But the bottom line is they just want to be able to flip a switch or have President Biden be able to sign a form and take over, and it's okay to take over the banking system. And by doing that, they backstop or bail out every deposit. A bank advocacy group has asked federal officials to lift that $250,000 per deposit cap, which serves wealthy clients who are this is deposit outflows that are a concern for followers of First Bank, which actually serves wealthy clients who are mostly clustered along the coast. Yellen on Tuesday said deposit outflows among banks, without mentioning any in particular, wouldn't want to do that, have stabilized. When asked about next steps, Yellen said there's time to evaluate whether some adjustments, it'd be a major adjustment, wouldn't it, are necessary in supervision and regulation to address the root causes of the crisis. I didn't know we were in a crisis. Interesting. I don't want to speculate at this point on what those adjustments might be. What I'm focused on is stabilizing our system and restoring the confidence of depositors. She's acting as if this is restoring the confidence of all depositors who are not even contemplating moving their money out of a bank. Well, we're talking about 2 banks that have gone down. So I go back to the question, what in the world are they seeing, or what do they know that scares them to the point that they would pull out the whole quote-unquote backstop system and cover? Just to make sure that everybody understands that means that if you have $1 million in XYZ Bank, it's covered. As opposed to today, if you have $250,000 in that bank, if you have $750,000, once again, let me go back. If you have $1 million in that bank, only $250,000 is covered by FDIC, and the rest is lost. And there you have it. It's troubling. And it seems like, if I remember correctly, because I followed the financial crisis extremely close, the markets, of course, did well every time the government came out and talked about what they were going to do to bail out the system. But then they always turned back and went the other way. And also, we'll get back to this here in just a second. 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around up against a break. Be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and K. Smith, pastorchuck.org. At pastorchuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at pastorchuck.org, a full library of great teachings by K. Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and K. Smith, pastorchuck.org.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson with the Point of View Radio Talk Show. I want to invite you to listen to our program on KDKR from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday. We look at various issues from a biblical perspective. Our topics range from politics and economics to the Bible, theology, and apologetics. We also bring authors and informed experts to the program. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. Hope you'll join us every day on Point of View right here on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show, 1-877-913-5357. So the road show started this weekend with the White House coming out and saying, hey, we're going to back everything up, no big deal. All depositors will be made whole. Then today we had Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen come out, representing the Treasury, of course, Treasury Department, saying the same thing, that we'll do what we have to do to back up this bailout, back up, whatever they want to call it, the system. And then tomorrow, the final part of the roadshow is Jerome Powell, J. Powell as they call him. Federal Reserve Board chairman will speak, and of course the Federal Reserve Board will announce what they're going to do with interest rates, which we'll talk about that in just a minute. So are they trying to create the optics of a bank run? I mean, like I said earlier, I was about to get into, you can look at this in a lot of different ways. Are they, are they trying to create this whole idea because of a bank run, of a major contagion bank run, because they want to take over the banking system? Who knows? Just a question I'll throw out there. But I just think this is a dangerous precedent to backstop, bail out all bank deposits. So it's the same deal was in 2008 when the government came out and started taking over company after company. And I'll never forget taking some calls during the financial crisis and how outraged people were the government was doing this. Now, it's just another day at the office. Sure, we'll take over XYZ company if it's going under because it's too big to fail. I mean, if you really look at it in this economy, in a globally based economy as well, the list is long of companies that are too big to fail. I mean, it just comes down to printing that money. And by the way, it's a little tough to talk about this over the radio without visuals. I saw a chart today. One of the main, you'll have to kind of just go with me on this. One of the main reasons we have inflation is because the money supply, or let me say it this way, one of the major causes of inflation is a rise in the money supply, the supply of money in the United States. Not to get into too much detail, because I want you to stick with me on this. Because of the way that the economy has been over a very long period of time, the Federal Reserve Board would pump money into the economy through various avenues and make sure that the country was flush with money for a number of reasons. Well, they were increasing and pumping up the money supply. Well, guess what? That causes inflation. So now, over the past, I'm going to say 2 years, I'm not looking at a chart, past couple of years, they've been withdrawing money from the money supply. In fact, they've been withdrawing money into such a major way that the money supply has been contracting. Not expanding, but contracting. And of course, they're doing that to fight inflation. But if you look at a chart over the past, I don't know, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe it was only a week, they have aggressively started pumping money back into the money supply, increasing the money supply again, which causes inflation. Now, okay, hang with me on this. So on one hand, they're doing it again. They're causing inflation. They're creating inflation. On the other hand, they're raising interest rates to stop inflation. Please don't ask me to explain that. That just is absolutely nuts. So tomorrow, the Federal Reserve Board is going to announce what they're going to do with interest rates. And of course, I'm sure it will be very market friendly. But then again, it just leaves you speechless as to what's going on. And I've got charts that back all this up from reputable sources that show what's going on. And it is absolutely unbelievable. Okay, so enough of that. how does FDIC work? Because I'm getting a lot of questions about it. FDIC, the best way to understand it is the FDIC insurance covers up to $250,000 per depositor per bank. Okay? Not $250,000 per family. So if you had a husband and wife who had a joint account, they each are covered up to if they had a joint account, they're each covered up to $250,000 worth of assets in the bank. So if they have $250,000 worth of assets, deposits, let me say it that way, make sure it's not confusing, $250,000 worth of deposits in their bank account in XYZ Bank, then they have another $250,000 they want to protect, and they can open up another account at ABC Bank and put another $250,000 or up to $500,000, $250 apiece, into that bank and cover both of them. Let me go back over that one more time. Once again, the FDIC covers per depositor, per account, up to a maximum of $250,000. So if you have $1 million in a bank and the bank goes under, FDIC is going to backstop, as of today anyway. Well, I don't even know what the rules are anymore. Currently, though, these are the rules. Will backstop $250,000 and you'll lose $750,000. Okay? If you had $500,000 and you put your spouse on the account, it's joint account, $250,000 is covered by the husband, $250,000 is covered by the wife, $500,000 is lost. But if you took that $500,000 and you went to another bank, you could set up one more joint account and both of you would be covered by that FDIC limit, $250,000 apiece. Hope that makes sense. But it's really, if you think about it, I just hope I didn't confuse everybody by trying to explain that. If you think about it, it does make sense. But it's $250,000 is the max per person or depositor, same thing, per bank. Okay? So that's why you don't want to have more than $250,000 per person in a bank. And but hey, listen though, the Treasury Department's going to backstop this. And here's the other thing that's interesting to me. I mentioned this yesterday. Is simply this: if you are a bank that is in trouble and you've got a situation on your hands that you feel like that if someone doesn't come bail me out, we are going to run into big time problems and the regulator's going to take us over. If you've got a major crisis that you know you're going to go through as a bank, why wouldn't you do it today? Just kind of speed that process up, because they're bailing everybody out, right? And if you're in trouble, you're supposed to go into crisis. At least that's what they're afraid of. But this would be interesting to see. Out of 250, out of roughly, according to the study yesterday that I mentioned, 186 banks in the same situation as Silicon Valley Bank. And what would happen if a quarter, 25% of them were having a problem? I don't know. That just don't even want to think about that. Okay, so that's what's going on. Oh, I know I was going to mention too is that I also remember that for the most part, Congress was involved, maybe not in all those bailouts, but in a good bit of what happened in 2008. So I just can't imagine the Treasury Department just saying, they're making sure that by law they can go ahead and they can change the rules of the game. whether it's a good idea or not, without Congress's approval. That's what Congress is there for, is to put another set of eyes on it. Regardless of how you think about them, that's what their job is. And boy, I sure would hate to see something railroaded through. And interesting times that we live in, for sure. So if you have any questions, you can always go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, send it into the Ask Bob section, and I will get it taken care of. If you want to go check out the other resources at prudentmoney.com, you're welcome to do so. The podcast every day on your favorite podcasting platform. And you can also go directly to prudentmoney.com for that as well. This is Bob Brooks. We are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.